Okay, today our learning goal is I can find the slope and y-intercept from a graph. Okay, some of you have heard the word slope many times. Some of you have heard it as rate of change. All right, and so we are going to get our notes, and we are going to be using these notes over several days, so it's very important that you put them in the front of your notes section after you flip that divider that says notes, and put it right there in front so you can pull them out several times. Today we're focusing on the slope and y-intercept from a graph. And first thing we're going to do is talk about the word slope, and we're going to get some vocabulary out. The slope describes on a graph the steepness of a line, okay? And you will also hear it, I'm going to say AKA, also known as the rate of change in a problem, okay? I would like to refer to your mathematics chart today. I am going to put that here in front of you, and I want to show you that the slope of a line, the slope-intercept form of an equation is y equals mx plus b. Your m is your slope in this equation, and we're going to be talking about this a lot, and your b is your y-intercept. Okay? So we're going to go back over that, don't worry, but I just wanted to point out that that is the slope-intercept form of an equation. But we are talking about graphs today. So the first thing I want to do is say, here are the steps to finding slope on a graph, all right? Look at the line to see if the slope is positive or negative. Well, if you don't know what a positive line on a graph is or a negative line on a graph, then that, what I just said, is very foreign to you. So I know that I put a graph out for everybody, and I am going to show you the difference between a positive slope and a negative slope. And remember, we are talking about linear equations, which means straight, okay? And if I put a linear equation, I'm going to move it all the way up here, okay? And I'm going to put a line that this is a positive slope because it's going up from left to right. So I'm going to write positive, okay? It means that as your x increases, your y also increases, your y value. Now, we have something, the other kind of line that we have is called a negative slope, okay? So I'm going to draw a picture of a negative slope. And I'm going to draw it up here because I don't want anybody to get the misconception that it has to be in the negative part of the graph. So here is a negative slope, and if you notice from left to right, it is going down, okay? So as your x value increases, your y value is decreasing, and this is a negative slope, okay? All right, I guess you needed to know your axes, so let's talk about those. The horizontal axis of a graph is your x-axis. The vertical is your y-axis. And these are all important things to keep in mind as we are finding slope. So let's go back to our slope from a graph. Slope and y-intercept from a graph. The first thing it says is look at the line to see if the slope is positive or negative. So let's also define slope as the letter m, because in our slope y-intercept form, the m is representing your slope, and the m is always next to your variable. Positive is going up, negative is going down. Okay? Choose 2 points on the line. Now, this is critical because those points, and I'm going to show you on this big graph before we do it on a small graph, those points have to be at a place where the line crosses exactly, and my line isn't drawn very pretty, but exactly at what I call the 4 corners. Do you see how this and this make a cross? And right here is where they all cross. And you have to count from one cross point to another cross point. You can't do it in between. It doesn't work. So choose 2 points on the line and count. We say rise, over, run. Okay? And I'm going to refer again back to your chart, and when well, I'm not going to do that today. Rise is your Y and run is your X. Write the slope as a simplified fraction. And a fraction is also known as a ratio or the whole number. Okay, so we don't want a repeating decimal. It's really hard to count rise over run if you're dealing with decimals. Now, sometimes when they're talking about a real world problem, you will see it written as a decimal. That is fine, but it would never be a repeating decimal. But we are going to simplify them as fractions or whole numbers. To find the y-intercept, now in that equation, y equals mx plus b, that is your b value. So I want to just get really comfortable with b and m, okay? Look at the graph to see where the line crosses the y-axis. So we're talking, write that y value of that point. So we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about slope, and we're talking about y-intercept. All right, so we have 2 examples here that we are going to do together. On A, first thing I want you to do, because I want you to build this practice, and you need to do this on every problem that you do. I'm going to write M equals rise over run, okay? And then I'm going to put an equal sign, and remember I said I wanted you to write it as a fraction, so I'm going to write a line, okay? Now, I see this line here, and I have to pick 2 points where it's really crossing at the corners. Now, there are different places to do this. I see a couple of different places, but I am going to choose right here and right here. And when I count rise, you always count up first, then you count over. So I'm going to draw a right triangle, okay? And I want you to do this every time. Then I'm going to start counting. And when you start counting, a lot of people already count when I put my pencil down 1. That's not how you count slope. You have to count when you raise your pencil, 1, 2, and then I'm going to write my 2 here because that was my rise. And then I have this corner, and remember, I don't count until I raise my pencil, and here I go over, and it's 1. So my rise is 2, and my run is 1, okay? Now, I said you had to simplify this. Now, some of you will recognize that what 2 over 1 is, and some of you won't, okay? So I suggest you go in and you put 2 divided by 1 in your calculator, hit enter, and it is 2. Now, if you had put 2 divided by 1, because this is the way you're going to simplify your fraction, and hit math, enter, enter, it gives you 2 back, okay? Or you may have to use, if you use alpha F1, you can do that and hit, you want to keep it as a fraction, and so then it would simplify it if you put it in and then use your alpha F1 and said fraction and hit enter. So my rise over run simplified is 2, and what this is saying is I'm going up 2 and over to the right 1, because this line, remember I said we had to decide, is going up from left to right, therefore it is a positive slope, okay? The other thing I need to consider on here is finding my b value, okay? So let's take, and we have b, and what did b represent? I hope you remember y-intercept, okay? So you don't necessarily need to write y-intercept. I just wanted to say that one more time. So I want you to write b equals, the y-intercept is where this line intersects the y-axis. So if this is the y-axis going up and down, this line crosses the y-axis at right here, which is the value on the y-axis of 1. A lot of students get confused with the x-axis versus the y-axis. Remember that b, or the y-intercept, is on the y-axis. Now, since it's positive, I don't need to write a plus, but if it was negative, I would need to write a negative sign, meaning that it was below 0 on the y-axis. Okay? Let's go to b. So first thing I said I wanted you to do was write m equals rise over run. Then I want you to give it to me as a fraction, and then you are going to simplify that fraction. It may be a fraction or a whole number. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to look at our line, okay? And that line is starting here. If I look at this graph, the graph from left to right, and I go across, it is going down from left to right, which means then that it is negative. So I want you to put that negative sign out there before you even start. Now, just so we get rid of misconceptions, that negative sign can be written, and I'm going to find something here. All right, when you have a negative sign and you have a fraction, okay, it can be written with the top number, it can be written with the bottom number. So it could look, I'm just going to take an example, and I'm going to put in 4/9, okay? It could be written like this. It can be written right in the middle. It can be written 4 over this, and it all means the same thing. It could be written 4 over 9. So please don't, as long as you don't have 2. If you have 2 negative signs, then it turns into a, come on, negative divided by a negative gives you a correct. And we don't write 2 negative, we just look at the line and we say, which way is it going, up or down, left to right? So it's going down, all right? So I'm going to pick 2 points. The easiest 2 points I see, there's this one, there's this one. I see a point where it crosses here. So you could count from here to here. You could count from here to here. You could count from here all the way over to here. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I am going to draw my triangle. I always draw up first and then over. I'm going to go all the way over to there. So first I said count your rise. So I'm going to start where my point is, and I'm not going to count till I pick up my pencil. 1, 2, and I'm going to write that on the side. Then I'm going to go to the corner here of my right triangle, and I'm going to count over to this point, and I'm going to count starting when I pick up my point, my pencil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I'm going to write it. I rose 2 and I ran 6. And for those of you who, if you go left, it's going to be negative. If you go across to the right, it's going to be positive. Please don't draw this way, okay? Because then you're going to want to count across first. And remember, it says rise over run. So I'm going to put this in my calculator, but I need to keep it as a fraction. So -2 divided by 6, and I'm going to hit my math key. And I want a fraction, so that's number 1. You can hit 1, enter, or I just like to hit enter, enter, and I get -1/3. So my slope is -1/3. I still need to find my b, which is my y-intercept. So in this case, this line right here is crossing the y-axis right here. And does everybody know what that is called? It is called the origin. Where the x and the y-axis is crossed, we call that the origin. And that point is 0, 0. X's value is 0, y's value is 0. Now remember, we only care about what y's value is, so b is equal to 0. Okay? Now, you are going to have a practice today. If you'd like to go get your practice, pause me. And now we will start. The first side of it says types of slope. All you are going to do is identify these lines as positive or negative. So remember, I might write myself a little reminder. Up like this is positive, and down like this is negative. Okay? And if you look at them and go left to right, is it going up? And you can actually do that with your finger. Or is it going down left to right? If your finger goes down left to right, it's negative. If your finger goes up left to right, it's positive. And as far as I'm concerned, do you have to write the whole word out? No. You can write a plus or a minus sign, or you can write pos or neg. All right? In fact, I'd prefer you write pos or neg, or positive or negative. The other side, it says find the slope and find the y-intercept where indicated. Now, some of these are not set up to find the y-intercept so well because it's in the middle, and I'm not going to ask you to do that. So there are only 1, 2, 3 times you're going to find the y-intercept. The rest of the time, you are going to just find slope. And I know it says slope, but I want you to come out here, write m equals. I want you on top of the slope to write rise over run. And believe me, if you do this, you will get it right. You will do the rise over the run. These even have the points on the lines for you. We're starting out real simple, and then we will get a little bit harder as we go. So you just find your point, and you go up and draw your triangle and go over. Every problem must have this. Is this line going up or down? It's going up, so it's positive. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, up, over, and right at your 4, and then 1, 2, over, and then I'm going to simplify it and leave it as a fraction. So 4 divided by 2, math, enter, enter, gives me the number, whole number, 2. Okay? And that's what you're going to do today. Remember, don't forget negatives and positives, and have a great day.